Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. I worked as a flight attendant for a few years. When I decided to take an extended sabbatical from college, there were a handful of let's not meet situations I encountered, but one in particular still makes my skin crawl more than any other. I was born and raised in Texas, but I had moved to New York when I was 21. So when I found out at the beginning of a week-long trip that I'd have a couple of overnights in Austin, I was super excited to go to my home state, even just for a few days. My brother lived just north of the city, and we planned to hang out and go to dinner the night that I arrived when he got off of work. And then the following day, we were going to meet up with our dad, who lived about an hour away. So, I get to the hotel downtown, the crew and I check in, and then we each head off to our rooms. Short elevator ride and I get to mine. But we're not even 5 minutes later. There's a loud, hard knock on the door. It was only around 1 or 2 p.m., and I hadn't called either my dad or brother to let them know that I was in town yet, so they wouldn't know what room I was in. So I assumed it was maybe one of my crewmates, so I headed to the door. And before even making it to the door, a loud male voice on the other side boomed. He said, "The front desk sent me about the bathroom problem you called in." And before trying to open the door, he said again, "Unlock the door and open up, miss. I need in, now." I froze in my tracks. I hadn't even been in the bathroom yet, let alone called anything to the front desk. I'm a petite chick, and while I take no shit from anyone despite my size, I still err on the side of caution. Slowly inching toward the door to look out the peephole, all I could tell was that the man on the other side was at least 6 foot tall and easily over double my weight. There was no way in hell that I was going to unlock the door. I responded to the guy, telling him that he must have had the wrong room. He continued pounding on the door while constantly turning the handle, telling me no, and that he needed in, and he was getting in the room one way or another. So I panicked, but thankfully, I had the sense to grab the phone and call the front desk. The concierge confirmed that they had neither sent anyone up to my room, nor had they received a call about the bathroom. The entire time, this freaking guy was still determined to get into my room, pounding and yelling. Luckily for me, the front desk has dispatched security to my room. When the security officer stepped off the elevator a few seconds later, I can hear them in the hall approach and ask the guy who he was and what he was doing, and telling him that he needed to leave the hotel. He immediately gets hostile and aggressive toward them, and the front desk clerk that I'm still on the phone with tells me that the police have been called and are on their way. In the meantime, I'm trapped in my room and I'm scared shitless. Long story short, the cops show up pretty quickly and manage to arrest the guy for trespassing and criminal menacing or some shit. I later found out that the guy was also wanted in connection to a string of break-ins and violent sexual assaults in Austin. He had seen and stalked me from the minute that I entered the hotel lobby, and apparently, I was exactly his type of victim. Nothing else ever happened after that, but it still rattled the hell out of me for the rest of my stay in that hotel. I'm female, 31, and stays away from home on a business trip. About an hour ago at around 8:30 p.m. here, I had just gotten back to my room from a work dinner. I heard shuffling in the hallway and I peeked out of the peephole. I saw a figure seemingly outside the room to the left of mine. They were knocking lightly and said twice quickly, "Hello? Hello?" Then, it sounded like the door opened and closed. I was like, okay, they must have forgotten what room they were in or something, and someone let them in. I walk back to the main part of my room, and I hear the shuffling again. I look out again and see a figure. I can't really make out what the person looks like, but I see them on the other side of my room this time. Again, I hear a light knocking and hello? Hello? Now, I'm starting to get a weird spidey sense of like, what the hell is going on? I see the figure leave and I think, okay, that was really weird. But then again I start hearing the shuffling. I start walking toward the hotel room door and I hear a light knock on what sounds to be my door again. And I hear, "Hello? Hello?" And immediately, after someone attempts to open my door. Thank God that I had the cross latch pulled over. My heart stopped as I stood there and I watched the door hit the latch and fall back shut. I called the front desk and informed them that someone had just tried entering my room and I'm not staying with anyone. The front desk attendant just replied, "I don't have any housekeeping up there." To which I replied, Okay. Well, that's concerning. Can you please send someone up to check around?" Then the attendant replied, "Well, there's no manager on duty." To which I asked if I should just call the police instead because I was very worried and I was starting to cry a bit. And she just replied that I should do what I thought I needed to do. I hung up and cried for a bit, not really sure what to do, and I didn't want to ask for another room because I'm too scared to leave now. 10 minutes later, the hotel phone starts ringing, and I was honestly feeling really scared to answer, but I did. It was from the front desk attendant, and she said the police were going to be coming to my room, and she didn't want me to panic when I heard someone knock on my door. I said okay and I hung up. I sat there and thought, how do I know this is real? Whoever tried to access my room had a key. Otherwise, how else would the door have actually opened? A few minutes later, as expected, I hear a knock, and I look out the peephole and saw 2 male officers. I didn't ask to see their ID, which in hindsight, it probably would have been the smart thing to do, but I was so shaken up and not really thinking. I opened the door and they asked what was going on, and I told them all that I explained above. They said that it was good that I had the cross latch pulled over, because the door would open if not. I responded, "It's a hotel, what do you mean? What's the point of the access card then?" They then took a pause and they were like, "Oh, it automatically locks?" Again, I'm like, yeah, it's a hotel." So then they had me shut the door and open it with a key to test it. And sure enough, it didn't open without the access card. Then they said it was probably housekeeping. I responded that the front desk attendant told me that there was no housekeeping up there when I called, plus it was 8:30 p.m. Why would housekeeping be coming by at that time unless I had requested someone to come by? Plus, I noticed housekeeping had already been there during the day because my trash was emptied out and my dirty towel was gone. They ultimately told me that they thought it was housekeeping and not to worry, but if anything else happened or I felt unsafe, just to call them again. They also said that if I wanted to change rooms, they were sure the hotel would accommodate this. I said okay while crying, and they left. Now, I'm sitting in my room crying, laying under the covers in my clothes. I'm sure I won't sleep tonight, and I'm also too afraid to change rooms because I don't want to leave this room. I have the cross latch pulled over, and the deadbolt lock. I think I'm safe. Am I just being paranoid? Was it probably housekeeping? Should I be doing something different?
A couple of years ago, I was driving myself back to my little hometown in Idaho. My sister was going to be having her first kid, and it was going to be my first niece, so I wanted to be there for her. It was going to be about a 10-hour drive, and I was planning on leaving the following Friday morning since I was off and had the whole day to get there. Unfortunately, I had a maintenance thing come up at my apartment that I had to be there for, and of course, when you're given a time frame of 4 hours, they will show up in those last 30 minutes, then take another 2 hours to complete it. Because of this, I ended up leaving around 6 or 7 that night. I was pissed, but decided I would still head out that night. That way I could get there early, crash for a few hours, and be good to go. So I got my stuff in my car and headed out. Because I had planned this in advance, I already had a couple bottles of water, energy drinks, and snacks ready to go. It was about mid-October, so the weather was great to just have the windows cracked, music blaring, and enjoying the ride. The view was pretty nice too, and there wasn't too much traffic at that time, so I was in a good state of mind. Unfortunately, I started crashing around 1 or 2 a.m. I didn't want to stop because I knew I only had a few hours left, but it was a struggle. I had finished off my energy drinks, rolled the windows down more, hoping the chillier air would keep me awake, but nothing was working. I know how dangerous it can be driving when you're tired and on the highway on top of that, so I decided to stop at a hotel to sleep for the night. I drive a tiny 2-door coupe, so it's not exactly comfortable to lean the seat back and sleep. Otherwise, I would have just done that. I look for the hotel signs and get off the exit for the first one I see. It was a little old looking from the outside. I don't remember the name of it as it wasn't one of the bigger chains either. I just thought as long as the door locked and it wasn't too badly priced, I'll stay. I didn't need anything other than a bed. I got out, grabbed my bag, and headed in. The lobby was a bit eerie. It was dimly lit with a single couch and table area, and the desk had what appeared to be bulletproof glass around it. It also smelled musty, like it hadn't been used in years. Even the carpet looked ancient with its dark red theater-looking pattern. As I approached the desk and saw that it was empty, I noticed the door behind the desk that was slightly open, and I heard faint talking, like it was coming from a TV. There was no bell or any way to get someone's attention, so I just said, "Hello?" and waited. I heard the talking get quieter and someone coming out of the room. It was a frail older guy wearing what I think was something like long johns in a robe. He wasn't rude or anything, but he also wasn't very polite. But maybe that's because I was there at 2 a.m. and I was interrupting his show. He said good morning, asked how long I was staying, gave me my room key, and told me the quiet hours and that no smoking was allowed. I thanked him and walked off down the hallway. I got to my room, which made me realize I definitely got what I wanted. It looked just as old in the rooms as it did in the lobby. Same red carpet, mustard yellow curtains and bedding, and the same musty smell. The air just felt still in there, so I quickly turned on the AC to get the air flowing. I sat my bag and purse down in the chair and went to the bathroom first. While I was in there, something just felt off. It was like that sense you get when you're being watched. I figured it was just me being on edge because I was tired and in a place I wasn't familiar with. So I splashed water on my face, changed into my pajamas, and got into bed. As I was laying there though, that feeling would not go away. I tried just falling asleep and ignoring it, but unlike in the car, I now was unable to. That's when I started hearing things. I couldn't really tell at first what it was, but it was really quiet, like it was either a muffled TV or someone whispering. Trying to be reasonable, I was thinking it was just someone with the TV on too loud in the next room, so I tried ignoring it. I think because of the situation though, I started getting annoyed and actually smacked the wall a few times, hoping they'd get the hint. It appeared they did as it got quiet, so I tried to focus on sleeping again. Not long after, I started hearing more noises, but this made me jump as it actually sounded like someone whispering in my room. I quickly turned on the light and looked around and didn't see anything. Now that I'm spooked, I turned on the TV to have some of my own sound to try and help. Unfortunately, the whispering kept up. It wasn't constant, but I could hear it, and it all just sounded mumbled. I could never make out anything. Until the end, when it sounded like it was right behind me, and it said, "It hurts," and it made me jump again. I looked behind me towards the door, and I just saw a dark figure. It looked like a child, or maybe a young woman. I quickly turned on the light and it was gone. Now, I know I turned on the air, but it was just the fan, so the air was moving, but it was freezing in that room. I went and looked at the unit thinking maybe I did turn on the AC, but it was still on fan. I turned it off since it had gotten so cold in there, and then I turned on all of the lights, turned the TV louder, and tried to forget about it all. It wasn't much longer when I started feeling something at the edge of my bed. I again tried to rationalize that it was something like the comforter moving or falling until it started feeling more like someone grabbing my foot. That was it for me. I grabbed my stuff, ran out of that room in my pajamas still, and noticed the room that I thought the TV sounds were coming from was actually just a janitor's closet or supply room. I walked past the front desk, and the room in the back was now dark, but I kept going. I tossed my stuff in my passenger seat as I got in and locked my doors. If I would have known that that was going to happen, I would have just tried to sleep in my car. I couldn't shake the weird feeling just being in the parking lot, so I left. I didn't even care about the money. I didn't feel right trying to explain I wanted a refund because I saw a ghost, so I just ate it. I drove further down to a 24-hour McDonald's and slept in my car for a few hours. I used the restroom to change into clothes, grabbed a large coffee, and headed back out. When I got to my sister's, I told her all about it, and she believed it. She's very into the paranormal, so she enjoyed the story, but me, not so much. I wanted to look into the history of that hotel, but I couldn't remember the name of it. One of the times I go over there again, I have to try and find it for her, but it will be during the day, and I promise you, I will not be staying there.
Hi, my name is Taz. I'm not a native English speaker, so if anything's a little off, it's because Google Translate has failed me. A trigger warning: if you are uncomfortable with any mentions of nudity, then please stop listening. Your mental, emotional, and physical health comes first. Do you know those silly school trips that last a few days? I used to go on as many of those as I could. I love them. It was always fun to choose your roommates, and decide who went on what bed and etc. And I would have been about 12 or 13 at the time of this story, and everyone else involved being around the same age. This school trip was meant to be like any other. It was for my English class, and it was about a certain author that we were studying. The day started ordinary. We got off of the coach and we went up to our designated rooms, and in our room was a shower and a toilet and 4 bunk beds. One was closer to the door and the second was parallel to it on the opposite side of the room. I was on the bottom bunk, my friend Rosa was on the bunk on top of me, and my other friends, Eloise and Noelle, were on the other bunk. Eloise was on the bottom and Noelle was on the top. To get into our room, you had to go up 2 flights of stairs and into a little foyer area. From there, you had a door directly to the left of the foyer entrance door. Go through that door and there were 2 more doors, one to the left and one straight forward, and the one directly in front was ours. It's important to note that some friends of ours were in the room to the left. We were allowed to go out in small groups in the village or town area as long as we told the teacher. I remember my room and the next room to us went out to grab some snacks and food, as we would not be having food until the next morning. Our room was bigger, and we all went in there to enjoy our masterful feast. It must have been around 6 p.m. Maybe a little later. Our school was very friendly and everyone knew pretty much everyone, so we would have a set time that we would all go down and talk, socialize, play snooker, watch The Love Island, or just generally chill out. And our teachers would join in as well. It was a lot of fun. We would usually go up to our rooms at around 10 to 11 p.m. and that night, we went up at 10. My roommates and I stayed up for a while, talking and sharing sweets around. The rooms next door didn't have a toilet and they were worried about what they could do. So we decided that instead of being smart and just giving them our room key and taking it back in the morning, that we would just keep the door unlocked for them. I'm pretty sure that I fell asleep at around midnight after everyone else had fallen asleep. And I woke up a short while later, completely knackered and half asleep. I'm a light sleeper, so when I heard the door click shut, I immediately woke up. I assumed that it was one of the girls next door coming in to use the toilet, but it wasn't. I heard low grunting, panting, I'm not sure, which confused my still asleep brain to no end, but I concluded that it was one of the male teachers who just forgot to check up on everyone. It's not that uncommon. What I didn't expect was the dude to come over and sit down on the edge of my bed, as if he was getting ready to get in. He sat on my foot, and I guess he felt it because he stood back up and put his hands on the end bars of the ladders on both of the bunks and assumed trying to stay standing up. For some reason, I still thought it was a teacher, but I was starting to wake up a little at this point, starting to take in the situation. I heard him say, "Wait, this is not my room. It's a room with girls in it." And I just replied, "Yes, it is." It was weird. It wasn't a question and he didn't sound confused or embarrassed. He stated that he was in a room full of young girls and he knew where he was. I'm pretty sure he purposely looked for a girl's room. He also didn't speak like a normal human being. Looking back, why on earth was I not freaking out? I have no idea. Note that this is the first night. A lot of crazy things happen on that trip, some of which will haunt me forever. Always lock your doors no matter what. Be smart, be safe, and remember, if something happens to you, it's never your fault, and you're not alone. Anyway, I heard slight shuffling and the door clicked shut again. And that's when it clicked for me. There was an unknown man in our room, and I talked to him. I bolted up into a sitting position and quietly slipped out of the bed, grabbing our room key off of the coat hook that we put it on. Then, I saw legs. I would have screamed if I wasn't so stunned, scared, and tired. I scrambled back into my bed, and that's when Rosa woke up. She was incredibly tired, and I was on the verge of a panic attack. I got up off of my bed so she could see, and I just pointed at the legs when she saw them, and she went wide-eyed and looked like she would join me in my panicking. We started whispering, trying to figure out what to do. Then Noelle woke up, asking us to be quiet as she was trying to sleep. So Rosa broke the news that we probably wouldn't be sleeping properly at all that night. Noelle didn't believe us at first, so I tiptoed over to her and showed her the legs. Then it hit both of us. He was naked. There was a naked man in our room, unconscious for all we know, just in front of the door, blocking out the only escape route from the room. And so far it wasn't looking too great. I went over to Eloise and shook her awake. She scared us half to death with how loud she sounded, and we were terrified that this man had come into our room with bad intentions, and was either pretending to be unconscious so that we would go near him, or that he had somehow managed to knock himself out. But if we went near him, he might awaken. I got Eloise to calm down, and Rosa once again explained as I started to break down. The other girls closed behind me in my distress. We got out our phones and started calling every friend contact that was on the trip with us, desperately hoping that they would wake up and that they could come and save us. But sometimes, you have to be your own hero. We were trying to stay calm and figure out a plan, but Noelle was able to reach her dad on the phone, and he gave us some advice about how to handle the situation, but ultimately told us to get out and find someone to help us. Remember that the man was in the entryway, blocking the door with his head. It felt like we were trapped, but we decided to just do it. If it went wrong, we would just hit him on the head with the door. Simple. Noelle went first, followed by Eloise, then me, and then Rosa. The door was only open a crack, so we had to move quickly and quietly, trying to fit through the crack as best as we could. Otherwise, we ran the risk of hitting him and waking him up. I'm fairly certain Rosa hit him on the head just to spite him, and I wish I had the confidence to do that. We went through both of the doors and out into the open space area, and at the left end of the area was one of the male teachers' rooms. I remember frantically knocking on the door, still being careful to not wake the man or anyone else up, but no teacher ever answered. So we kinda just stood there in the middle of the open area, freaking out and crying ourselves a river. And looking back, I feel kinda stupid, but I can't change the past. Then all of the teachers on the trip came out of the corridor, talking quietly, obviously seeing us sobbing, and seeing me and Noelle collapse on the floor in a breakdown was not what they had expected to see that night. Apparently, the man had been walking around most of the rooms trying the door handles, knocking on the doors and just trying to get in. My male teachers had caught him and taken him downstairs, and at that point, he had a bedrobe on. The teachers had gone to one of the rooms to figure out what they should do, and since we were underage and part of a school, they had to call the police. We had to stay up and wait for the police to arrive, and we had to go to a separate area where the female teacher's room was and calm down over there. When the police arrived, they took the man downstairs and we were asked some questions, and we asked questions in return. The police told us that the man wasn't drunk, nor on drugs, and he had no reason to be there, and they had no idea what his intentions were and what he was doing that night. He was kicked out of the hotel and is never allowed back there. But nevertheless, it was quite creepy, and I wish to never see him again. And here are the top comments from my last video. And here's the riddle for this video. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.